Hello witches, wizards, and those who are yet to receive their Hogwarts School letters. Welcome to my Harry Potter kitchen. This is the YouTube series where I'm baking my way through the Harry Potter books, making recipes every time we find an item of food and drink inside. If you missed last week's recipe where we made our very own homemade edible jelly slugs with edible slime, make sure you check out the link down below in the description to catch up. And if it's your first time in the kitchen and you want to see more, make sure you hit that subscribe button and click on the notification bell, then you'll get an alert every Magic Monday when there's a brand new recipe. Speaking of which, it's time to head back into the chamber to see what's next. Okay, so let's head back to chapter 7, Mudbloods and Murmurs, to see what's next. So unfortunately, Ron is still throwing up those slugs from last week. They've gone to Hagrid's hut to try and get some help. He's let them know that there is only one way to cure this, and that is to throw them all up. So Ron is busy with his bucket while the rest of them are catching up. There's talk about the Halloween feast coming soon, so I know there's going to be some more food on the horizon. Then they're back to the castle at lunch, and they're talking about their punishments for what happened to the Whomping Willow. So Ron is going to be polishing silver, Harry is going to be helping Lockhart with some fan mail, and that's what I can see our next recipe. Harry didn't fancy his shepherd's pie as much as he thought. Both he and Ron felt they'd got the worst deal. Can't be all that bad, you've got some comfort food. If you'd like to make this traditional lamb shepherd's pie, all of the ingredients, measurements and instructions are up on my website, bradleybakes.co.uk. So today we're going to be making shepherd's pie, and if you've never heard of shepherd's pie before, it is a lovely, homely British classic. You get a nice base made from a meat ragu, and that's topped with mashed potato, and then it goes into the oven, so it's a lovely, bubbly and roasted when it comes to the table. Some people often get shepherd's pie confused with cottage pie, but there is one big difference, and that's the meat you use inside. The way I like to remember it is shepherds herd sheep, and sheep give us lamb, so lamb needs to go into your shepherd's pie. For cottage pie, that uses beef. There's not quite an easy way to remember that because cows don't live in cottages, but you get the picture. Whichever you prefer, you can always use the same base recipe and then just switch out the meat. So today, I'm going to walk you through how to make a traditional shepherd's pie. We're going to make the meat ragu ourselves. I'm going to make my mashed potato with two different kinds of potatoes so we can do some My Harry Potter kitchen decoration, and then we'll bake that to perfection so it's ready for dinner. First up, we need to prepare our lamb, so this is what you need to do. First things first, we're going to make our mirepoix, which if you remember from our earlier recipes, that's the mixture of celery, carrots and onions. So I'm going to chop these up nice and small and then get a pan on a medium heat. Add in some oil and then your vegetables, and I'm going to stir that through until they're nice and sweated. After about a minute, you want to peel and crush your garlic in and then stir that through. After about 2 minutes, they've just started to caramelize, so I'm going to take them out of the pan and place them into a bowl. Keeping the pan on a medium heat, I'm then going to add in my lamb so we can get a nice sear of caramelization around the outside. You can season this with salt and pepper, and we don't want to overcook them, so literally about 20 to 30 seconds each side, turning it as you go. I'm then going to take these out of the pan as well and place them into a separate bowl. The next step is really important, so we're going to deglaze the pan, and this is going to get all of that caramelized flavor off from the bottom and into our sauce. I'm going to do this with some red wine, so pour that in and let it bubble away, and don't worry, it will burn off the alcohol, so this one is safe for the kids too. I'm then going to add in my tomato passata and tomato puree. At this point, the rest of the ingredients just need to go back in, so I'm adding in my mirepoix, my seared lamb, and my seasonings. That's salt, pepper, mixed herbs, cinnamon, and nutmeg. I've also added in a few dashes of Worcestershire sauce. Give this a stir until the mixture starts to bubble, and then we're going to reduce the heat right down to its lowest setting. Place the lid on top and then allow this to simmer for 1 to 2 hours. This is going to make sure that our lamb melts in the mouth when we tuck in. Okay, while our lamb is bubbling away, we're going to move on to making our mashed potato for the topping. And as I mentioned at the start, we're going to use two types of potatoes for this. The majority of it is going to be a standard white potato, and I'm also going to make some sweet potato because I want to pipe on some My Harry Potter kitchen decorations as well. It's a really easy mash recipe that will work no matter what, and because I can't resist a bit of cheese, I'm going to add some of that into my base as well. This is what you need to do. To begin, you want to peel your potatoes. It's best to leave these in some cold water to prevent them from going brown while you work on the rest. Cut them into rough chunks, and then I'm gonna make the white mash first. So I'm gonna pop these into a pan of boiling water, make sure it's nicely salted, and then boil them for about 10 to 15 minutes until they're nice and soft. I'm then gonna switch out these potatoes and move on to cooking my sweet potatoes. And again, these should take about 10 minutes, so you can pierce them nicely with a fork. To create the mashed potatoes, all I'm going to do is strain off the water using a colander. Then I'm using a ricer, but you can also use a masher or a fork if you don't have one. As I mentioned, this is going to be a cheesy mash, so I'm using half mozzarella and half cheddar, and I'm going to add that in along with my butter, milk, salt and pepper, and then mix that through until all the cheese and butter is melted and it's nicely combined. Once the sweet potatoes are cooked, I'm going to do the same, but without the cheese this time, just using butter, milk, salt and pepper, and then getting that nice and smooth. Traditionally, you can just spoon this on top of your shepherd's pie, but I want to add a little bit of Harry Potter kitchen magic. So I'm going to place these into some piping bags with star tips, and then we'll be able to pipe them on top of our filling when it's ready. Okay, so our mashed potato topping is all ready to go, as is our lamb ragu. And what I like to do with this is just take the lid off about half an hour before it's ready, and then let some of that water evaporate off, and then you'll get a lovely, rich and thick sauce in the bottom of your shepherd's pie. All that's left to do is assemble, and then we can get this in the oven. Carefully spoon your lamb ragu into the bottom of your dish, and then level it off. I like to do it in a circle, as the decoration works best. I'm going to start off by piping my lightning bolt with the sweet potato mash. So I'm going to do this in the middle. You can of course use the stencil if you want, but I prefer to do it freehand. I'm then going to take my cheesy mash with the star nozzle and pipe all the way around to lock in that shape. I want to make sure I've got a nice thick layer of mash, so I'm then going to repeat the layers on top, starting with the lightning bolt and then the cheese mash. And to finish it off, I'm then going to use a little bit of the leftover sweet potato mash just to make some decorations around the edge. With that, the shepherd's pie is good to go into the oven, and you want to bake that at 180 degrees Celsius, 350 Fahrenheit for about 20 minutes. You should start to see the mash start to go lovely and golden. Just before serving, take it out of the oven and sprinkle over some parsley, take it to the table and tuck in. So that is how you can make a traditional lamb shepherd's pie with a little My Harry Potter kitchen twist. Let me know if you've tried shepherd's pie before, and if not, are you going to give this one a go? That's all for this week's recipe, but if you want to see more from My Harry Potter Kitchen, make sure you hit that subscribe button and click on the notification bell, then you'll get an alert every Magic Monday when there is a brand new recipe. Time for me to tuck into my pie, so I'll see you next week. Smells so good.